The moving truck pulled away from the small cottage on Maple Street, leaving Maya Chen alone on the porch with the last of her boxes. She took a deep breath of the salty air. Wildwood Cove was nothing like the busy city she'd left behind. The quiet coastal town with its rows of million-dollar homes overlooking the ocean felt both peaceful and intimidating. "This was your home once." "Grandma," Maya whispered, touching the weathered wooden railing. "Now it's mine." The cottage stood out on the street, a humble two-bedroom structure nestled between sprawling modern mansions. While her neighbors had manicured lawns and luxury cars and circular driveways, Maya's yard was overgrown, and her trusty 10-year-old Honda sat in the cracked concrete driveway. Maya didn't mind. At 32, she valued simplicity. Her wardrobe consisted mostly of jeans, plain t-shirts, and her favorite worn leather jacket. Her dark hair was usually pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore minimal makeup, just enough to brighten her tired eyes after long nights of coding. Inside the cottage, Maya set up her home office with multiple monitors and a high-end computer, the one luxury she allowed herself. As a software developer, she could work from anywhere, and after her grandmother passed, moving to Wildwood Cove seemed like the right choice. The inheritance had surprised her. She hadn't even known her grandmother owned property here. During her first week in town, Maya explored the small downtown area, finding a cozy coffee shop where she could work when her cottage walls felt too confining. At the local grocery store, she overheard talk about an upcoming charity gala. "It's the social event of the season," the cashier told an elderly customer. "The Lighthouse Foundation raises money for children's education. Very exclusive. Mrs. Harrington runs it with her friends. You know, the big White House on Cliff Road." Maya thought about her grandmother, who had been a teacher. Education was important to their family. Perhaps volunteering would be a good way to honor her memory and meet people in her new hometown. The next day, Maya walked into the Wildwood Cove Community Center, where preparations for the gala were underway. Tables were being arranged in the large hall, and a group of women huddled around a clipboard deep in discussion. "Excuse me," Maya said, approaching them. "I heard about the charity gala. I'm new in town and wondering if you need volunteers." 5 heads turned toward her simultaneously. The woman at the center of the group, tall, blonde, dressed in a cream-colored designer suit, looked Maya up and down, taking in her simple jeans and plain sweater. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "How community-minded of you," she said. "I'm Victoria Harrington, chair of the Lighthouse Foundation." "And you are?" "Maya Chen. I just moved into my grandmother's cottage on Maple Street." Victoria's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose slightly. "Oh, the little place between the Richardsons and the new development? How quaint." The women around Victoria exchanged glances. One of them, a redhead with a tennis tan and diamond earrings the size of grapes, smiled thinly. "We can always use extra hands," Victoria said, her tone suggesting Maya's hands would be doing the least desirable tasks. "Diane here is in charge of volunteer coordination." A thin woman with a severe bob stepped forward, clutching a tablet. "We're setting up today and tomorrow. The event is Saturday night. Can you handle physical tasks? Moving boxes, arranging chairs?" "Of course," Maya nodded. "I'm stronger than I look." "Good," Victoria said, already turning away. "The storage room needs clearing out. Everything must be cataloged before we decide what to keep and what to toss." As Maya followed Diane toward a door at the back of the hall, she heard one of the women whisper, "Another charity case trying to network her way up. $10 says she's angling for a job or a handout." Maya pretended not to hear, but her cheeks burned. She'd faced this kind of judgment before in the tech world, assumptions based on her appearance or gender. She'd learned to let her work speak for itself. The storage room was a disaster, boxes piled to the ceiling, dusty decorations from events past, tangled strands of lights, and stacks of papers yellowing with age. "Start with those boxes," Diane said, pointing to a particularly precarious tower. "Make lists of everything. We'll need to know what's salvageable." She handed Maya a notebook and pen, and try not to break anything valuable. For the next 4 hours, Maya sorted through decades of accumulated items. She organized everything methodically, creating spreadsheets on her phone when the notebook proved insufficient. Occasionally, Victoria or one of her friends would peek in, making comments like, "Still at it? My goodness, you're certainly persistent," before disappearing back to their more important tasks. Around noon, a young man pushed a cart into the storage room. "Lunch delivery," he announced, then noticed Maya sitting cross-legged on the floor surrounded by neatly organized piles. "Oh, hey there. You must be new. I'm Ben from Coastal Catering." "Maya," she said, stretching her stiff back. "I'm volunteering." "Well, Maya, who is volunteering, you look like you could use a sandwich." He handed her a wrapped package from his cart. "The committee ordered lunch, but they always get too much." "Thanks." Maya accepted the food gratefully. "Have you worked with them before?" Ben leaned against the doorframe. "Every year, Mrs. Harrington and her crowd run most of the big events in town. They mean well, but—" He trailed off, shrugging. "They're a bit much," Maya offered. "Let's just say they live in their own world." Ben glanced over his shoulder. "Fair warning. They have a habit of treating new volunteers like personal assistants. Last year, a woman quit after Mrs. Blake had her pick up her dry cleaning." Maya unwrapped her sandwich. "Thanks for the heads up." "No problem. If you need a rescue, I'll be here all week with the catering team." He pushed his cart toward the exit. "Good luck in there. Holler if you need reinforcements." By late afternoon, Maya had transformed the storage room. Everything was sorted, labeled, and arranged efficiently. She'd even created a digital inventory that could be updated year to year. When Victoria and her friends came to inspect, they seemed momentarily taken aback. "Well," Victoria said, tapping her manicured nails against a newly organized shelf, "I suppose this will do. Though I'm not sure about your categorization system. It's alphabetical and color-coded," Maya explained. "I also created a digital version you can access from your phones." She showed them the QR code she'd generated. The women exchanged looks. "How innovative," one of them said, making the word sound like an insult. Victoria checked her watch, a gleaming Rolex that probably cost more than 6 months' rent in Maya's old apartment. "Ladies, we're due at the club in 30 minutes. Blake's holding our table." She turned to Maya. "You can finish up here, can't you? Just lock up when you leave. The key goes through the mail slot at the front office." Before Maya could answer, they were gone in a flutter of designer clothes and expensive perfume, their laughter echoing down the hall. Maya sighed and continued working. Through the window, she watched them climb into a white Range Rover, Victoria at the wheel. As they pulled away, she caught snippets of their conversation, probably trying to get her foot in the door with the right people. "Did you see those shoes?" "From what decade? Poor thing, so desperate to fit in." Maya shook her head. If only they knew. She thought about her bank account with its 8-figure balance, about the offers she'd turned down from major tech companies, about the software she'd developed that had revolutionized data security, and the company she'd built from her apartment and later sold for billions. But they didn't need to know that. Maya hadn't come to Wildwood Cove to impress anyone. She'd come to connect with her grandmother's memory, to find a quieter life, to do meaningful work away from the spotlight. As she finished organizing the last shelf, Ben returned, eyebrows rising as he took in the transformation. "Wow. This place has never looked so good." "You must be some kind of organizational wizard," Maya smiled. "I like systems. Things make more sense when they're in order." "The committee left you here alone, didn't they?" Ben asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Is that unusual?" "Let's just say they typically save the grunt work for newcomers." He glanced at his watch. "I'm done for the day. A bunch of us locals are grabbing dinner at Harbor Grill. Nothing fancy, just good food and better company. Want to join?" Maya hesitated. She'd planned to spend the evening setting up her home network and unpacking more boxes, but the thought of another meal alone in her half-empty cottage suddenly seemed lonely. "Sure," she said. "I'd like that." As they walked through town in the golden evening light, Maya felt a glimmer of hope. Victoria and her friends might control the social scene in Wildwood Cove, but they weren't the whole town. Perhaps there was a place for her here after all, not as the tech millionaire she'd been in her previous life, but simply as Maya, the new girl with the old cottage on Maple Street. What she couldn't know, as she followed Ben toward the warm lights of the Harbor Grill, was that her quiet arrival in Wildwood Cove was about to cause ripples that would eventually turn into waves, changing the town and its people in ways no one, especially not Victoria Harrington and her friends, could possibly imagine. The Harbor Grill buzzed with laughter and conversation. Unlike the upscale restaurants on the waterfront that catered to tourists and the wealthy, this place had mismatched chairs, worn wooden tables, and walls covered with faded photographs of fishing boats and local sports teams. It felt real. Maya sat with Ben and his friends, a mix of local shopkeepers, teachers, and service workers who kept the town running. They welcomed her without judgment, curious about the newcomer but not in the calculating way Victoria's group had been. "So you're living in Rose Chen's cottage?" asked Lily, who ran the town's bookstore. "I loved that place as a kid. Rose would let me read on her porch swing when my parents were working." "Rose was your grandmother?" asked Tom, a middle school science teacher. "She was amazing. Tutored half the kids in town for free. Never turned anyone away." Maya felt a tightness in her chest. "I didn't know her well. My parents moved away when I was little. We lost touch. She talked about you," Lily said gently. "Had your picture on her mantle. She was proud of you." Maya blinked back unexpected tears. "I wish I'd known." As the evening progressed, Maya learned more about her grandmother and about Wildwood Cove. The town had changed in recent years, with wealthy outsiders buying up properties for summer homes. Housing prices had skyrocketed, forcing many locals to move inland. "The Lighthouse Foundation isn't bad," Tom explained. "But Victoria and her friends treat it more like a social club than a charity. Last year they spent more on the gala than they raised for the actual cause." Maya frowned. "That seems counterproductive." "Welcome to Wildwood," Ben said, raising his glass in a mock toast, "where appearances matter more than results." The next morning, Maya returned to volunteer. Victoria raised her eyebrows when she walked in. "Back for more? You're certainly persistent." "I said I'd help," Maya replied simply. "What needs doing today?" Over the next few days, Maya threw herself into the preparation work. She updated their donor tracking system, making it more efficient. She suggested streamlining the auction process with a mobile app instead of paper bid sheets. Each idea was met with dismissive glances or backhanded compliments. "Not everyone is tech-savvy like you, dear," Victoria said with a patronizing smile. "Our donors prefer the traditional touch." But Maya noticed Diane, the volunteer coordinator, taking notes on her suggestions. On Thursday afternoon, Victoria's inner circle gathered at one end of the hall, voices hushed but carrying. Maya, hanging fairy lights nearby, couldn't help overhearing. "Did you see what she's wearing? Those boots must be a decade old. Probably can't afford better. I heard she's living in that rundown cottage permanently, not just for summer. So sad. At her age, too. She keeps trying to change everything. As if we haven't been running this gala successfully for years. Peter says she orders the cheapest thing on the menu at the coffee shop and sits there for hours using the Wi-Fi. Probably can't afford internet at home." Maya's cheeks burned, but she kept working, fingers steady as she untangled strings of lights. She thought about the 3 tech companies she'd built and sold. About the investment portfolio that generated more money each day than these women probably spent in a month. About the charitable foundation she'd established that funded education for thousands of students. But revealing any of that would change everything, and not necessarily for the better. Maya had spent years being treated differently because of her wealth. People either wanting something from her or assuming she hadn't earned her success. Here at least, people responded to who she was, not what she had. By Friday evening, the community center had been transformed. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. White roses and hydrangeas adorned every table. A stage was set up for the live auction, and display tables showcased donated items from local businesses and wealthy residents. Victoria surveyed the room, nodding with satisfaction. "Not bad at all. Though I'm still not sure about those centerpieces." Her friend Patricia adjusted a flower arrangement. "They'll do. We're expecting over 200 guests tomorrow night. The governor might make an appearance." "What about the tech mogul? The one who bought the Henderson estate?" Victoria asked. Thomas reached out to his people, but they were non-committal. "He's very reclusive," Patricia replied. "Doesn't do public appearances." Maya hid a smile. They were talking about Leo Wang, a former colleague who'd bought a vacation property nearby. She texted him earlier that week about the foundation. Victoria turned to Maya, who was sorting name cards. "We're having a pre-gala garden party at my house tomorrow afternoon. Key donors and committee members only." She paused, then added with obvious reluctance, "You've been helpful, I suppose. You can come if you'd like. Nothing fancy, just drinks and light refreshments." 2:00. Maya recognized the invitation for what it was, not genuine inclusion, but a reward for good behavior, like tossing a treat to an obedient pet. Still, it might be interesting to see how the other half of Wildwood lived. Thank you, she said. I'll be there. Victoria's house on Cliff Road was exactly what Maya expected. A sprawling white colonial with perfect landscaping, a circular driveway filled with luxury cars, and a breathtaking view of the ocean. Maya parked her old Honda between a Mercedes and a BMW, feeling the contrast but not embarrassed by it. She'd dressed simply but neatly in her best jeans and a blue blouse she'd bought years ago for a tech conference. Her only jewelry was her grandmother's silver pendant, a small lighthouse that seemed fitting for the occasion. The garden party was in full swing when Maya arrived. About 30 people clustered in groups across the manicured lawn, holding champagne flutes and small plates of elegant hors d'oeuvres. Maya recognized Victoria's core group, along with other faces she'd seen around town: the bank president, the owner of the yacht club, a state senator. Victoria spotted her and beckoned with a perfectly manicured hand. "Maya, you found us. Come, let me introduce you." What followed was a series of introductions where Victoria subtly undermined her with each one. "This is Maya. She's been helping with our setup. She lives in that little cottage on Maple Street. You know, the one that needs painting. Maya's new in town. She does something with computers, don't you, dear?" Maya's been so eager to get involved, bless her heart. Each introduction made it clear that Maya was an outsider, someone to be tolerated rather than welcomed. Some guests nodded politely before turning back to their conversations. Others asked condescending questions about how she was settling into town, as if she were a child at a new school. Patricia approached with a man in an expensive suit. Robert was just asking about the online bidding system for tomorrow. "Apparently there's a glitch? Since this was your idea, perhaps you can explain." Maya recognized the setup. They'd found a problem with her suggestion and wanted to see her squirm. But technology was her world. After asking a few questions, she quickly identified the issue. "It's a simple browser compatibility problem. I can fix it right now if you have a laptop I can use." Robert looked surprised. "You can actually fix it? I thought we'd need to call in a professional." Patricia's smile tightened. Maya likes to tinker with computers. Within 15 minutes, Maya had resolved the issue, added some security features they'd overlooked, and improved the user interface. Robert was impressed, but Patricia quickly steered him away once the work was done. Maya wandered through the garden, feeling increasingly out of place. Near the rose trellis, she overheard Victoria talking to an elderly woman dripping in diamonds. "Yes, we let some of the locals help with setup, community involvement and all that." The girl in the blue blouse can't afford proper attire, obviously, but she's eager to please. Probably hoping to make connections. The older woman peered at Maya through her lorgnette. "Isn't that Rose Chen's granddaughter? I heard she moved into that cottage." "Yes, such a shame. Rose was at least useful, tutored children and whatnot. This one just hovers around trying to change our traditions. As if we need technology advice from someone who probably buys her clothes at discount stores." Maya had heard enough. She turned to leave, but collided with the server carrying a tray of red wine. The glasses tipped, sending a wave of Cabernet down the front of her blouse. During a break in the auction, Maya slipped outside for fresh air. The night was clear, stars visible despite the lights from nearby houses. She sat on a bench, enjoying the momentary quiet. The door opened behind her, and Patricia, Victoria's right-hand woman, emerged with her husband. They didn't notice Maya in the shadows. "Howard Richardson was talking to that Chen girl like she was somebody," Patricia said. "Just because her grandmother tutored his grandson," her husband laughed. "Probably trying to secure another math tutor on the cheap. You know how Howard hates to pay full price for anything. Well, Victoria says we need to be careful around her. She's been asking questions about the foundation's finances." Diane caught her looking through last year's reports. What's she going to do? She's nobody, just some tech worker living in a rundown cottage. Still, we don't need her stirring up trouble. Victoria's going to phase her out after tonight. No need to encourage her involvement? They moved toward the parking lot, still talking. Maya remained on the bench thinking. So they'd noticed her interest in the finances, and they were planning to exclude her going forward. Back inside, the auction was wrapping up. The final item was a surprise addition: a private dinner with the governor. Bidding was fierce, eventually settling at $25,000 from a real estate developer. As the evening wound down, Victoria made a final announcement. "Before we conclude, I'd like to share some sad news. Our beloved Wildwood Theater is at risk. As many of you know, Mr. Finch is retiring and selling the property. Developers are planning to replace it with luxury condominiums. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Victoria raised her hands for quiet. The Save the Theater Committee has been working to purchase and preserve this town landmark, but they're well short of the asking price. Tonight, I'm pleased to announce that the Lighthouse Foundation will establish a matching fund. For every dollar donated to Save the Theater, we will contribute 50 cents up to $50,000. Applause filled the room. Maya noticed several of Victoria's friends looking surprised. Clearly, this hadn't been discussed with them. "What a wonderful gesture," Mr. Richardson said loudly. "But why stop at 50,000? This room represents millions in wealth. Surely we can do better." Victoria's smile tightened. "Howard, we have many worthy causes to support. The theater is important, but I'll match whatever the foundation contributes," the elderly man declared. "Dollar for dollar, no limit. This town needs its theater." Now the applause was thunderous. Victoria looked both pleased by the response and annoyed at being upstaged. Maya watched with interest as the social dynamic shifted. Howard Richardson had just challenged Victoria's control of the narrative. After the gala, Maya helped with some of the cleanup, then slipped away before Victoria could corner her. She drove home thinking about everything she'd observed. The foundation had potential to do good, but its leadership was more concerned with status than impact. And then there was the theater. Maya had always believed in preserving cultural spaces. They were the heart of communities. Even with Howard Richardson's generous offer, the Save the Theater Committee was still far from their goal. Property values in Wildwood Cove had skyrocketed, and the theater occupied prime real estate. At home, Maya kicked off her shoes and made a cup of tea. She opened her laptop and pulled up her banking app, staring at the balance, a number with 9 zeros after it. Money she rarely touched, money that could solve problems with a few keystrokes. She thought about her grandmother teaching children regardless of their background, about Ben and his friends welcoming her without judgment, about Mr. Richardson's genuine affection for Rose Chen. Then she thought about Victoria and her friends, their casual cruelty and self-congratulatory charity work. Maya made a decision. She created a new email account, then composed a message to the Save the Theater Committee. She offered to donate the remaining amount needed to purchase the theater, anonymously. Her only conditions were that ticket prices remain affordable, that community groups could use the space at reduced rates, and that a small educational center be established in the lobby to provide after-school programs. She clicked send, then closed her laptop. Tomorrow would bring new developments, but tonight she'd sleep knowing she'd honored her grandmother's legacy in a way that would have made Rose Chen proud. What Maya didn't realize was that her quiet action was about to set off a chain of events that would turn Wildwood Cove's social hierarchy upside down, with her at the center of the storm. News travels fast in small towns. By Monday morning, everyone in Wildwood Cove was talking about the mystery donor who had saved the theater. Maya heard the gossip at the coffee shop where she'd stopped for her morning latte. "They say it's enough to buy the building outright and fund renovations," the barista told her as she handed Maya her drink. "But nobody knows who gave it. The committee just said it was an anonymous benefactor who believes in the arts." Maya hid her smile behind her cup. "That's wonderful news. The theater is such a special place, right? My first job was selling popcorn there. Would have been a shame to lose it to more fancy condos." The barista leaned closer. "Everyone's trying to figure out who has that kind of money. Victoria Harrington is going crazy. She likes knowing everything that happens in this town." Maya spent the morning working from her cottage, occasionally glancing out at the garden her grandmother had once tended. It needed work, another project to add to her growing list. Around noon, her phone rang with an unfamiliar local number. "Hello, Maya Chen speaking. Ms. Chen, this is Howard Richardson." The elderly man from the gala sounded cheerful. "I was wondering if you might join me for lunch today. I have some stories about your grandmother I'd love to share." Surprised but pleased, Maya accepted. An hour later, she was seated across from Howard in the sunroom of his sprawling Victorian mansion. Unlike Victoria's perfectly staged home, this place felt lived in, with books stacked on tables and family photos covering the walls. "Rose and I served on the school board together for 20 years, Howard explained as his housekeeper served soup and sandwiches. Smartest person in any room, but never made anyone feel small for it. She had a gift for explaining complex ideas simply. Maya smiled. trying to reconcile this image with the distant grandmother she remembered from rare childhood visits. I wish I'd known her better. She talked about you often. Was so proud when you got that scholarship to MIT. Kept every article when your first company made the news. Maya froze with her spoon halfway to her mouth. She knew about my work? Howard looked confused. Of course she did. She followed your career closely. Said you'd inherited her head for numbers but had vision she never possessed. He studied Maya's face. You didn't know? We lost touch. My parents moved across the country when I was young. There were complications. Howard nodded gently. Rose mentioned family difficulties, but she never stopped loving you or being proud of what you accomplished. Tears pricked at Maya's eyes. All this time she'd thought her grandmother was a distant figure who'd let family connections fade. To learn that Rose had been quietly following her journey, hurt and healed in equal measure. Did she know about... Maya hesitated. The money? Howard chuckled. Yes. She found it quite amusing that her granddaughter was worth hundreds of millions while living in that little cottage and taking the bus. His eyes twinkled. She was a private person too. Understood why you might want to live quietly after all that attention. Maya sat back, processing this revelation. Does everyone in town know? Goodness, no. Rose was the soul of discretion. I only knew because we were close friends and she needed help setting up her will to leave you the cottage. Victoria and her crowd certainly have no idea they've been condescending to one of the wealthiest tech entrepreneurs in the country. He grinned mischievously, though I must admit it's been rather entertaining to watch. Over dessert, Howard shared more stories about Rose, her dedication to students, her sharp wit, her love of the town despite its flaws. Maya soaked in every word, building a clearer picture of the remarkable woman who'd been her grandmother. As lunch ended, Howard walked her to the door. One more thing, Maya, about the theater donation. He gave her a knowing look. Maya kept her expression neutral. What about it? Just wanted to say Rose would have approved. She loved that old place. Took students there for free showings of Shakespeare adaptations every year. He patted her hand. Your secret's safe with me. Walking back to her cottage, Maya felt lighter somehow. Learning that her grandmother had been proud of her, had followed her career from afar, changed something inside her. The cottage no longer felt like a random inheritance but a deliberate connection. Rose wanting Maya to have a place in the community she'd loved. That evening, Maya joined Ben and his friends at Harbor Grill again. The theater donation was still the main topic of conversation. Victoria's convinced it's some tech billionaire looking to buy influence, Lily said, rolling her eyes. She's been calling everyone she knows trying to uncover the donor. Why does she care so much? Maya asked. Because she didn't think of it first, Tom explained. And because someone upstaged her without asking permission. In Victoria's world, that's practically a crime. The conversation shifted to plans for the theater. The committee was talking about expanded programming, film festivals, educational workshops. Jobs would be created. The downtown area would remain vibrant. Maya listened, satisfied that her money would be put to good use. This was how wealth should work, supporting communities, not just accumulating in offshore accounts. The next morning, Maya's quiet breakfast was interrupted by frantic knocking. She opened the door to find Lily from the bookstore, looking excited and slightly out of breath. Have you seen it? Lily thrust a magazine into Maya's hands. New issue of Tech Innovators. Just arrived at my shop. Maya looked down and felt her stomach drop. There on the cover was her own face. Alongside the headline, 40 Under 40, The Minds Shaping Tomorrow. The subheading read, Reclusive Security Expert Maya Chen's New Venture. It's you. Lily's eyes were wide. You're that Maya Chen, the one who created SecureFlow and sold it for billions. Maya sighed, setting the magazine aside. Yes, that's me, but why didn't you say anything? Why are you living in Rose's cottage instead of some mansion? Because mansions are lonely, Maya said simply. And because I wanted to connect with my grandmother's memory, not buy my way into a community. Lily stared at her for a long moment, then laughed. Victoria and her friends are going to lose their minds and they don't need to know. Maya, honey, this is Wildwood Cove. By noon, everyone will know. By dinner, they'll have calculated your net worth down to the penny. Lily was right. Throughout the day, Maya's phone buzzed constantly with texts and calls from numbers she didn't recognize. She ignored them all, focusing on her work and trying to process this unwelcome development. Around 4 o'clock, her doorbell rang again. This time it was Victoria Harrington herself, holding a gift basket and wearing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Maya, darling, I just heard the most extraordinary news. May I come in?" Reluctantly, Maya stepped aside. Victoria swept into the cottage, eyes darting around the modest space. "What a charming project you have here, so rustic." "It suits me," Maya said, not offering refreshments or inviting Victoria to sit. "What can I help you with?" Victoria's smile widened. "I just wanted to personally welcome such a distinguished resident to our community. Had I known who you were, I would have arranged a proper introduction to everyone who matters in town." "I've met plenty of people who matter," Maya replied coolly. "The bookstore owner, the teachers at the school, the folks at Harbor Grill." Victoria waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, they're lovely, of course, but I meant people of substance. Those on your level." "I wasn't aware people had levels." Victoria laughed as if Maya had said something amusing. "You're so refreshing. Look, I'll be direct. The Lighthouse Foundation is planning our fall fundraiser, and we would be honored if you would join our board. Someone with your resources and visibility could take our little charity to the next level." "The same charity where you spent 70% of funds on parties and administration last year?" Victoria's smile faltered. "Those figures are somewhat misleading. Networking is essential to fundraising, as you must know." "I do know. I also know that an efficiently run foundation should keep administrative costs under 20%. Victoria adjusted her strategy. "Perhaps you'd like to help us improve our processes. With your expertise, I'm not interested in joining your board, Victoria. But thank you for the invitation." Victoria's pleasant facade cracked slightly. "I don't think you understand what an honor this is. Many people would love this opportunity. Then I suggest you invite one of them instead." Victoria stared at Maya, clearly unused to rejection. "You know, I thought perhaps our rough start was a misunderstanding, but now I see you're just determined to be difficult." She picked up her untouched gift basket. "If you change your mind, you have my number." After Victoria left, Maya sat at her kitchen table feeling drained. Being discovered meant dealing with people who only saw her bank account, not her as a person. It was exactly what she'd been trying to avoid. Her phone chimed with a text from Ben. "Heard the news. Still friends if I promised never to ask for investment advice." Maya smiled, grateful for his easy acceptance. "Friends? Dinner at Harbor Grill tonight? I could use normal conversation. See you at 7, and heads up. Half the town will probably stop by our table to meet the famous Maya Chen. Bring your autograph pen." That evening, Maya walked to the restaurant feeling self-conscious for the first time since moving to Wildwood Cove. As predicted, she drew stares and whispers. Some people who'd never spoken to her before suddenly waved as if they were old friends. The Harbor Grill was busier than usual. When Maya entered, the room didn't fall silent like in movies, but the buzz of conversation definitely shifted. Ben waved from their usual table where Tom, Lily, and several others already sat. "So," Tom said as Maya slid into her seat, "you're secretly loaded and never mentioned it. I feel cheated out of my chance to hit you up for a loan." Everyone laughed, and just like that, the tension broke. These people, the ones who'd welcomed her before knowing her net worth, treated her the same as always. They asked casual questions about her work but seemed more interested in her as a person than her wealth. Midway through dinner, a hush fell over the restaurant. Maya turned to see what had caused the shift in atmosphere. Victoria Harrington stood in the doorway with Patricia and several other members of her social circle, people who normally wouldn't set foot in the Harbor Grill. Victoria spotted Maya and headed straight for her table, her friends following like a designer-clad entourage. "Maya, what a coincidence finding you here," Victoria said, though it was clearly no coincidence at all. "We were just discussing the theater renovation. As major supporters of the arts, we'd love to hear your thoughts." Ben caught Maya's eye and mouthed "major supporters" with raised eyebrows. "I'm having dinner with friends right now," Maya said pointedly. Of course," Victoria smiled at the table. "We wouldn't dream of interrupting. Perhaps we could join you? I'm sure your friends wouldn't mind making room." Before anyone could respond, the restaurant owner approached. "Mrs. Harrington, your table in the private dining room is ready, as you requested." Victoria looked momentarily flustered. "Oh yes. Thank you." She turned back to Maya. "Why don't you and your friends join us? Much more comfortable." Maya looked around at Ben, Lily, Tom, and the others, people who had accepted her without knowing or caring about her bank balance. Then she looked at Victoria and her friends, people who had mocked her when they thought she was nobody and were now desperate to associate with her. The choice was easy. "We're comfortable right here, thanks." "Enjoy your dinner." Victoria's smile tightened. "Another time, then. We have so much to discuss." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "About the anonymous theater donation, perhaps?" Maya kept her expression neutral. "I'm sure the donor values their privacy, just as I value mine. Good night, Victoria." As Victoria and her friends retreated to their private room, Lily raised her glass. To Maya Chen, still the same person she was yesterday, just with better publicists. Everyone laughed, and Maya felt a wave of gratitude for these people who saw her, not just her success or her wealth. What she didn't yet realize was that Victoria Harrington wasn't used to being refused, and that the Socialites' wounded pride was about to make things in Wildwood Cove very complicated, indeed. Maya woke to the sound of her doorbell ringing repeatedly. Checking the time, 7:15 a.m., she groaned and pulled on a robe. Through the peephole, she saw a delivery man holding an enormous flower arrangement. "Delivery for Miss Chen," he said when she opened the door. "Where would you like it?" Over the next 2 hours, Maya received 7 more deliveries. Gift baskets, chocolates, wine, and more flowers, all from people who had never spoken to her before. Each came with a card suggesting lunch, offering investment opportunities, or inviting her to join various boards and committees. By mid-morning, her small living room looked like a gift shop, and Maya had had enough. She packed most of the items into her car and drove to the local senior center, donating everything except a small plant from Ben that had arrived with a note saying simply, "Fame sucks. Need an escape plan?" At the coffee shop, the owner insisted her latte was on the house despite Maya's protests. 3 people she'd never met stopped by her table to introduce themselves and mention their children who were very interested in tech careers. Maya cut her coffee break short and headed to the one place she thought might offer some peace, the bookstore. Lily greeted her with a sympathetic smile. "Rough morning?" "You have no idea." Maya sank into a chair in the reading nook. "I'm getting flashbacks to when my first company went public. Suddenly everyone wanted to be my best friend." "The vultures are circling," Lily agreed. "Victoria's been calling everyone in her contact list, trying to find connections to you. She's determined to get you to join her foundation board." "Not happening." Maya picked up a book from the table, running her fingers over the cover. "I liked it better when people either ignored me or were genuinely friendly without an agenda. Give it time. In a small town like this, news gets old fast. Next week, someone else will be the talk of Wildwood Cove." But as days passed, Maya's celebrity status showed no signs of fading. Her mailbox overflowed with invitations to galas, charity events, and private parties. Real estate agents left their cards, assuming she'd want a more suitable property. Luxury car salesmen somehow got her number. Most persistent was Victoria, who seemed to view Maya's resistance as a personal challenge. She sent increasingly extravagant gifts, each with notes hinting at the social doors she could open. Maya's only respite came during her dinners at Harbor Grill with Ben and their friends, who treated her no differently than before, or when she visited Howard Richardson to hear more stories about her grandmother. One afternoon, Maya sat in Howard's sunroom, laughing at his tale of Rose leading a school board rebellion over budget cuts. "She sounds fearless," Maya said, smiling at the mental image of her 5-foot-tall grandmother staring down the superintendent. She was. Howard's eyes grew serious. Rose believed that having power, whether from money, position, or knowledge, came with responsibility. She used to say, "Power hoarded is power wasted." Maya nodded slowly. "I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I've donated to causes, set up scholarships, but always from a distance. Always anonymously. Anonymity has its place," Howard agreed. "But sometimes attaching your name to something gives others permission to act." Rose understood that. When she publicly opposed those budget cuts, other teachers found the courage to speak up too. That evening, Maya walked along the shore, considering Howard's words. She'd been hiding, first her wealth, now herself, using privacy as a shield against the Victorias of the world. But what if she could use her influence more directly? The answer came to her as she passed the theater. Workers were already starting renovations, the marquee promising a grand reopening in 3 months. A handwritten sign in the window caught her eye. Community Input Meeting, Saturday 10 a.m. By Saturday morning, Maya had a plan. She arrived at the theater early, taking a seat in the back of the small crowd gathered in the lobby. The committee chair, a retired English teacher named Grace, outlined the renovation plans and preliminary programming ideas. "We want this to be truly community-centered," Grace explained. "The anonymous donor specifically requested that we keep tickets affordable and provide space for educational programs." Speaking of the donor, Victoria's voice rang out from the front row. "Shouldn't we be focusing on premium experiences to attract the right crowd? Wildwood deserves world-class culture." Several committee members nodded, clearly swayed by Victoria's influence. Maya could see the familiar dynamic taking shape, Victoria steering things toward her vision of exclusivity rather than inclusion. Maya stood up. "I'd like to speak about that." All heads turned. Victoria's eyes narrowed. "The donor's intent seems clear," Maya continued. "This theater should serve everyone in Wildwood Cove, not just those who can afford premium experiences." Victoria smiled tightly. "While we appreciate your input, Maya, those of us who've lived here for generations understand what's best for the town's cultural development." "Actually," Maya took a deep breath, "as the donor in question, I'm fairly clear about my intentions." A collective gasp filled the room. Victoria's mouth fell open. "You?" Grace asked. "You're the anonymous donor?" "I am." Maya moved to the front of the room. "And I'd like to explain my vision for this space, if I may." For the next 20 minutes, Maya outlined her ideas. A theater that would serve as both entertainment venue and community hub. Matinees for seniors at reduced prices. Free weekend programming for children. Space for local artists and filmmakers to showcase their work alongside mainstream movies. The renovations I'm funding include converting the upstairs offices into classrooms for after-school programs, she explained. "My grandmother taught me that education happens everywhere, not just in schools." Grace beamed. "Rose would have loved this." "I believe she would," Maya agreed. "And I'd like to establish the Rose Chen Educational Fund to support these programs long-term." The meeting ended with enthusiastic planning. Everyone had ideas to contribute. Everyone except Victoria and her friends, who huddled near the door looking displeased at this turn of events. As people filed out, Victoria approached Maya. "That was quite a performance. But if you wanted to make a difference, you could have joined forces with established organizations like my foundation. We have the connections, the experience." "I've seen your experience firsthand," Maya replied. "Your foundation does good work, but it's not aligned with my priorities." Victoria's pleasant mask slipped. "You've made a mistake. In this town, people either work with me or they find themselves isolated. Even with your money, you'll need allies." "I have allies," Maya said calmly. "People who valued me before they knew about my bank account." "Those people?" Victoria gestured dismissively toward Ben and Lily, who were chatting with Grace. "They're not in a position to help someone like you. But fine, have it your way. Just don't expect support from my circle when this little project of yours needs community backing." Maya watched Victoria leave, trailed by her increasingly uncertain-looking friends. The threat didn't worry her. She'd faced worse in the cutthroat tech world. What saddened her was Victoria's fundamental misunderstanding of what mattered. In the weeks that followed, Maya stepped fully into her role as community investor. She established the Wildwood Cove Community Foundation with a $50 million endowment, focusing on education, small business support, and affordable housing initiatives. Howard Richardson joined as chairman, bringing his business experience and deep knowledge of the town's needs. The foundation's first project addressed the housing crisis pushing service workers out of town. Maya purchased a defunct hotel on the edge of town and converted it to affordable apartments, giving priority to essential workers like teachers, healthcare providers, and service staff. Each step was met with both enthusiasm from most residents and resistance from Victoria's circle. When Maya funded small business grants, Victoria complained that untested ventures were getting handouts. When Maya established a scholarship program for the local high school, Victoria started a competing one with more restrictive criteria. The theater renovation became the most visible symbol of their differing visions. Maya wanted an inclusive community space. Victoria pushed for a more exclusive venue that would elevate the town's culture. The battle played out in town meetings, newspaper articles, and social media. 3 months later, on the night of the theater's grand reopening, Maya stood in the newly renovated lobby surrounded by excited townspeople. The Art Deco details had been lovingly restored, but modern amenities made the space functional and accessible. Photos of Rose Chen and other influential local educators lined the walls of the learning center upstairs. "You've created something wonderful here," Ben said, joining Maya at the refreshment table. Their friendship had deepened over the months, gradually evolving into something more. "We all did," Maya corrected him. "That's what community means." Howard Richardson approached, looking dapper in a suit. Victoria and her crowd just arrived. Looks like they couldn't stay away despite their complaints. Maya spotted Victoria near the entrance, surveying the crowd with a tight smile. Their eyes met briefly across the room. Maya nodded politely, but Victoria quickly looked away. "Some people can't accept change," Howard sighed, "especially when it challenges their position." "She'll adjust or she won't," Maya said. "The town is moving forward either way." The lights dimmed, signaling the start of the show. As Maya took her seat, not in a special reserved section, but in the regular seating among her neighbors, she reflected on how much had changed in 6 months. She'd arrived in Wildwood Cove seeking connection to her grandmother and a simpler life. She'd found both, but also discovered that real simplicity wasn't about hiding who you were or what you could offer. It was about authentic relationships and meaningful contributions. After the movie, Maya lingered in the lobby, enjoying conversations with neighbors who now treated her normally. The novelty of her wealth had finally faded into the background. She noticed Victoria standing alone near the door, her usual entourage mysteriously absent. Maya approached her. "Enjoy the film?" Victoria seemed startled by the direct address. "It was well presented." She hesitated, then added, "The restoration work is impressive." "Thank you." Maya waited, sensing Victoria had more to say. "Your foundation approved Diane's application for the small business grant," Victoria said finally, "for her event planning company." "She's quite grateful," Maya nodded. Her business plan was solid. "The committee evaluates applications on merit." "Yes, well." Victoria fidgeted with her purse. "She's the third person from my circle you've helped, despite our differences. The foundation isn't about personal feelings. It's about strengthening the community." Victoria studied Maya with new eyes. "You're not what I expected." People rarely are when we take time to know them. A tentative truce formed in that moment. Not friendship, but a mutual recognition. Victoria would never fully embrace Maya's vision, but even she couldn't deny the positive changes happening in town. As Victoria left, Howard joined Maya. "Making peace with the enemy?" Maya smiled. "There are no enemies in community building, just people with different perspectives." Together they walked out into the cool evening air. The theater's restored marquee cast a warm glow over the street where families and couples lingered, discussing the film and making plans to return. Maya looked up at her grandmother's cottage on the hill, its lights welcoming in the distance. She'd considered moving to a larger place but decided against it. The cottage connected her to Rose, to history, to what mattered most. "Your grandmother would be proud," Howard said, following her gaze. "I know," Maya replied, and for the first time she truly did know, not because of the foundation or the theater or any grand gesture, but because she'd found her place in the community Rose had loved, not as a wealthy outsider or a hidden benefactor, but as herself. She'd come to Wildwood Cove seeking her roots and found something even more valuable: the chance to grow something new while honoring what came before. No amount of money could buy that feeling of belonging, of purpose. As Maya walked home through the town that was now truly hers, she smiled at the thought of Victoria and her friends slowly realizing what Rose Chen had always known: that real wealth had very little to do with money, and everything to do with how you treated the people around you.